Hello, I'll be going over software piracy today. I'll be looking at what it is currently, why people commit software piracy, how one might stop software piracy, and then even do a little bit of speculation on what the future of software piracy holds. So what is software piracy? Well, software piracy at its heart is a type of copyright infringement. It typically involves the illegal copying and or distribution of computer software. It's a very serious criminal offense in the United States. If, like me, you grew up watching VHSs and DVDs, every time you pop on in, you'd see that little FBI logo letting you know how serious of a felony it was to record or copy this without the owner's permission. Software piracy is very common throughout the world. It's not isolated to just the United States. It's found in almost every continent in the world. Probably even in Antarctica, you could find somebody torrenting something somewhere. Examples would include cracked video games, counterfeit software. Game of Thrones actually came out last weekend. It'd be a perfect example of a show that's commonly pirated, but it's not software piracy, it's actual intellectual piracy. Counterfeit software is probably the most concerning type of piracy when it comes to large corporations because millions of dollars of revenue could be potentially lost. To better understand software piracy, we have to first understand what copyright infringement is. Let's read this little quote from the Constitution. The Congress shall have power to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. This is in Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution. It should show you how important copyright was to the founders of the United States government. It comes before even the Bill of Rights. Copyright is to encourage inventors and authors to create intellectual works. It's very difficult sometimes to receive your profit from intellectual works in comparison to, say, a physical work. A physical work, you hand it to the person, they give you money. If you write something for somebody, well, they can simply copy it and it's theirs forever, and you don't have any rights to it. Copyright addresses that. Copyright was kind of think of it as a replacement for what came before. It was the patron system. The patron system is what sponsored the works of Leonardo da Vinci. It's where rich patrons would give money to people, and they would have time and energy spending that money to create the works. There's a bit of irony that probably has to do with the recent spree of copyright infringements in which patronage is coming back. Look at sites like GoFundMe. It's a perfect example of patronage. They don't call it that, but it's pretty much the same thing if you think about it. So who are the victims of software piracy? Who is harmed? Well, first and most seriously, the developers are harmed. They lose any potential royalties off the sale, and those royalties would in turn go into their new creations. And many software developers, especially if they're more independent minded, they need that to survive. They use that money to buy, food, clothing, housing. So when they lose that, we lose new creations in the world. The next group that's harmed are corporations. Now, you might be less sympathetic to corporations, but they do sponsor a great deal of the creation that now occurs in our economy, and they lose millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to software piracy. Perhaps most seriously, however, is the general public are at risk for counterfeiting and software piracy. Many times when something's pirated and put on the internet, malware of some sort is put on the software, which creates vulnerabilities in your machine and allows them to be, possibly manipulated, fished for information. All kinds of potential difficulties could occur due to allowing this malicious software on your computer. So what are the reasons behind software piracy? Well, there's the obvious answer, which is money. If you're a group of counterfeiters, you can make millions of dollars by copying a piece of software and letting it go on the streets. You sell copies to individuals with broken keys or just remove the protections, and suddenly you have many people wanting to come up to you because your product is cheaper. Then you have the personal pirates, people who download stuff off a torrent site or what have you. These people, it's even more obvious. They're getting a free product. I mean, let's use Visual Studio as an example. That's several $100 piece of application. You download it off a torrent site, it's potentially free. You save hundreds of dollars by simply clicking a few buttons and going to the right website. Most people would be sorely tempted by that kind of financial gain. The more interesting and intriguing part, however, is accessibility. Now, many parts of the world, internet usage is restricted, and how internet technology has been used is also restricted. Encryption software is restricted in some parts of the world, and if you want to keep what you're doing encrypted and safe from scrutiny, you would have to pirate that software or otherwise get it illicitly. So how is software piracy stopped? Well, the most common first line of defense is some kind of key. This locks the program so that it cannot be used unless the key is used. However, many times this key is cracked and can still be pirated anyways. To combat this, some programs go a step further. They dial home to a home server, and it verifies and put some new code on the application that lets the software now work correctly. What's stopping piracy a lot these days is that many applications need constant access to some service that exists on the internet. Without a proper authorization code in that system, they can't use the web services of that application, which reduces the usefulness of quite a few modern applications. Cloud computing will likely change how software piracy works a great deal. Because these applications exist on a virtual machine and a remote server, it makes it very difficult to steal these applications. It's not impossible, but it means new applications that exist solely to copy these applications will have to be created by pirates. Or pirates will have to break into a physical location and steal these things. There might be new methods that pirates invent as well. Pirates are always innovative and keep on the cutting edge of technology. I think it's likely that software piracy is here to stay.